The call came at 2 a.m., my sister Rebecca's name flashing across my phone screen. I knew whatever prompted her to call at this hour couldn't be good. "Hey Madison," she drawled, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "Just thought you'd want to know, I sold Palmer Industries today. $10 million. Not bad for a company our parents built from nothing, right?" My heart stopped. Our family's manufacturing business, the one our parents had poured their lives into for 30 years, sold? Without anyone consulting me? "What are you talking about?" I managed to keep my voice steady despite the shock. "That's not possible. You can't just dash." "Oh, but I did," Rebecca cut in. "And here's the best part, you don't get a single penny. Not 1 cent of that 10 million is coming your way. Guess all those years of being mom and dad's responsible daughter didn't pay off after all." I sat up in bed, fully awake now. My name is Madison Palmer, and at 34, I've spent the last decade watching my younger sister systematically manipulate our aging parents and position herself to take control of everything they built. While I worked my way up through the company, learning every aspect of the business from the ground up, Rebecca played the perfect daughter, never missing a chance to undermine me. "You know you can't legally sell the company without my signature," I said, trying to reason with her. "I own 40% of the shares." Rebecca's laugh was sharp, cutting. "Oh please. Mom and Dad signed over all voting rights to me last month. Said they wanted to make sure the business stayed in capable hands. Face it, Madison, you lost. Just like you always do." The words stung, but not as much as they used to. I'd spent years being the family disappointment in their eyes, despite my dedication to the business. Rebecca had always been better at playing the game, at telling our parents exactly what they wanted to hear. "Well," I said, keeping my tone neutral, "I hope you read that contract carefully before you signed it." There was a slight pause on the other end. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing," I replied. "Congratulations on the sale. I'm sure you'll do great things with $10 million. I hung up before she could respond, my hands shaking slightly as I set the phone down. Looking out my bedroom window at the city lights below, I thought about everything that had led to this moment. Growing up, Rebecca and I couldn't have been more different. I was the serious one, always with my nose in a book or helping Dad at the factory. Rebecca was the social butterfly, charming everyone she met while barely maintaining passing grades. Our parents worried about her constantly, which only made them more susceptible to her manipulation. I'd seen this coming for years, watched as Rebecca slowly positioned herself as the only one capable of running the company. She'd convinced our parents that my careful, methodical approach to business was too slow and lacking vision. Never mind that I'd doubled our profits in the 5 years since I'd taken over operations. But what Rebecca didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that I'd been preparing for this moment. 3 months ago, I'd noticed some irregularities in the company's financial records. Small discrepancies at first, but they painted a concerning picture. Rebecca had been siphoning money from the company for years, covering her tracks with creative accounting. I took my findings to the board of directors, quietly building a case. They agreed to help me protect the company from what we all saw coming. Together, we'd drafted a special clause in any potential sale contract, one that required full disclosure of all financial dealings for the past 5 years before any sale could be finalized. Rebecca, in her rush to cash out, probably hadn't even noticed it. She was too focused on the bottom line, on finally winning what she saw as our lifelong competition. But in less than 24 hours, that oversight was going to cost her everything. My phone buzzed again, a text from James Chen, our company's lead counsel and one of the few people who knew what was really going on. "It's done," his message read. "The forensic accountants finished their review. Meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. You should be there." I typed back a quick acknowledgement, then lay back in bed, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow was going to change everything, and for once, I wasn't dreading the confrontation. I'd spent too many years being the responsible one, the one who played by the rules while watching Rebecca charm her way through life. The next morning, I arrived at Palmer Industries headquarters early. The familiar brick building looked different somehow, knowing what was about to happen inside its walls. Security nodded as I walked in. They'd been briefed to expect me, despite Rebecca's attempts to have my access revoked. I made my way to the main conference room, where James was already waiting with 2 forensic accountants and a representative from the company trying to buy us out. Rebecca wasn't there yet, typical of her to keep everyone waiting. When she finally swept in at 9:15, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood floor, she stopped short at the sight of me. "What is she doing here?" she demanded, glaring at James. "She has no authority anymore. Mom and Dad made that clear." James cleared his throat, shuffling some papers on the table. "Actually, Miss Palmer, your sister's presence is required for this meeting. Please, have a seat." Rebecca stayed standing, her perfectly manicured hands gripping the back of a chair. "I don't understand. The sale is done. I signed the papers yesterday." "Conditionally," James corrected her. "As per Section 7.3 of the contract, the sale is subject to a complete financial review of the past 5 years' records. That review was completed this morning." I watched as the color slowly drained from Rebecca's face. For the first time in years, I saw real fear in her eyes. "What exactly are you implying?" she asked, her voice tight. James nodded to one of the accountants, who opened a thick folder and began laying out documents on the table. Bank statements, transfer records, fake invoices, all the evidence of Rebecca's systematic theft from the company. "Over the past 5 years," the accountant began, "approximately $2.3 million has been diverted from Palmer Industries through various shell companies and fraudulent vendor accounts. All of these transactions trace back to personal accounts under your control, Ms. Palmer." Rebecca's legs seemed to give out, and she sank into the chair. That's ridiculous. I demand to see proof." "It's all here," I said quietly, speaking for the first time. "Every transfer, every fake invoice, every shell company. Did you really think nobody would notice?" She turned to me, her face twisted with rage. You did this? You set me up." "No, Rebecca. You did this to yourself. I just made sure you couldn't take the whole company down with you." The representative from the buying company stood up, his expression grim. "In light of these findings, we are withdrawing our offer to purchase Palmer Industries. Furthermore, we will be reporting these financial irregularities to the proper authorities." Rebecca's carefully constructed world was crumbling around her, and I could see the panic setting in. She turned to James, desperation in her voice. "There must be some mistake. I can explain everything. Just give me time to sort this out." But James was already shaking his head. "I'm afraid that won't be possible. The board has already voted to remove you from your position, effective immediately. Security will escort you to clear out your office." As if on cue, 2 security guards appeared in the doorway. Rebecca looked around wildly, like a cornered animal searching for escape. "You can't do this to me," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm a Palmer. This is my company." I stood up, gathering my papers. "No, Rebecca. This was never your company. It belonged to the people who built it, our parents, our employees, everyone who worked honestly to make it succeed. You just saw it as your personal bank account." She lunged across the table at me, but the security guards were faster, catching her arms before she could reach me. As they led her away, I could hear her screaming threats and accusations, her voice echoing through the hallways. I sank back into my chair, the weight of the morning's events finally hitting me. James put a hand on my shoulder. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly. I nodded, though I wasn't entirely sure. "What happens now?" "The board wants to meet this afternoon. They'll need to appoint new leadership, and..." He paused, giving me a meaningful look. "They're unanimous in wanting you to take over as CEO." The irony wasn't lost on me. After years of being told I wasn't good enough, wasn't capable enough, I was about to step into the role Rebecca had schemed so hard to claim. But first, I had one more difficult conversation ahead of me. My parents needed to know the truth about their perfect daughter, and I was the only one who could tell them. The drive to my parents' house felt longer than usual. Every mile gave me more time to think about what I was about to do, how I was about to shatter their image of their perfect daughter. The tree-lined streets of their upscale neighborhood hadn't changed since I was a kid, but everything else had. I parked in their circular driveway, noting that Rebecca's Mercedes was already there. Of course she'd come running to them first, she always did when things didn't go her way. Taking a deep breath, I grabbed the folder of evidence from my passenger seat and walked to the front door. I could hear raised voices before I even rang the bell. When my mother opened the door, her face was tear-stained, her usually perfect makeup smudged. "How could you?" she demanded, not even letting me step inside. "Your own sister." I held my ground. "Mom, we need to talk. All of us. There are things you need to know." "We know enough." My father's voice boomed from behind her. He appeared in the doorway, his face red with anger. "Rebecca told us everything. How you conspired with the board, how you sabotaged the sale just because you were jealous of her success." I let out a bitter laugh. "Is that what she told you? Did she also tell you about the $2.3 million she stole from the company?" That made them pause. My mother's hand flew to her throat, a gesture she always made when she was shocked. My father's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice lower now. I held up the folder. "Maybe we should discuss this inside. Unless you want the neighbors to hear everything." They stepped aside, letting me enter the house I'd grown up in. Rebecca was in the living room, perched on the edge of their expensive leather sofa. Her makeup was perfect, not a hair out of place, but I could see the panic in her eyes when she saw the folder in my hands. "Whatever she's about to tell you, it's all lies," Rebecca said quickly, standing up. "She's trying to manipulate you, just like she manipulated the board." "Sit down, Rebecca," I said, my voice firm. "For once in your life, you're going to tell the truth." I opened the folder and began laying out documents on the coffee table: bank statements, transfer records, copies of fake invoices. My parents leaned forward, their faces growing increasingly pale as they began to understand what they were seeing. "Over the past 5 years," I explained, my voice steady, "Rebecca has been systematically stealing from Palmer Industries. She set up fake vendor accounts, created shell companies, and diverted company funds into her personal accounts. The total amount is $2.3 million. My father picked up one of the bank statements, his hands shaking slightly. This can't be right." "It is," I said softly. "The forensic accountants verified everything. That's why the sale fell through, because the buyers discovered the fraud during their final review." My mother turned to Rebecca, her voice barely a whisper. "Tell me this isn't true. Tell me your sister is lying." But Rebecca just sat there, her perfect facade finally cracking. Tears started rolling down her cheeks, smearing her expensive mascara. "You don't understand," she sobbed. "I needed the money. My life, my lifestyle. I couldn't maintain it on just my salary." The silence that followed was deafening. My parents stared at her like they were seeing a stranger, not the daughter they'd always favored, always trusted. "Your lifestyle," my father finally said, his voice hoarse. "You stole from our company, the business your mother and I built from nothing, to maintain your lifestyle." Rebecca tried to reach for his hand, but he pulled away. "Daddy, please. I can explain everything. I was going to pay it back after the sale. That's why I needed the deal to go through." "Stop," my mother cut in, her voice sharper than I'd ever heard it. "Just stop lying, Rebecca. For once in your life, just tell us the truth." I watched as my sister's composure completely crumbled. The perfect mask she'd worn for so long finally shattered, revealing the desperate, selfish person beneath. "Fine," she screamed, jumping to her feet. "You want the truth? I've been living beyond my means for years. The cars, the clothes, the vacations, none of it was real. I was drowning in debt, and the company was my only way out. I thought if I could just get control, make the sale happen fast enough, nobody would notice what I'd done." My father stood up slowly, looking older than I'd ever seen him. "Notice? Did you think we wouldn't notice that our own daughter had been stealing from us for years? You never noticed anything else?" Rebecca shot back. "You never noticed when I was struggling in school, when I was fighting to keep up with Madison's perfect grades and perfect behavior. You just kept pushing me to be more like her, to work harder, to be better. Well, I found my own way to succeed." I sat there, stunned by her words. All these years, I'd thought she was the favored one, the one our parents preferred. But listening to her now, I realized she'd been just as trapped by their expectations as I had been. She'd just chosen a different way to cope. "Rebecca," my mother said, her voice trembling, "what you've done, it's not just wrong, it's criminal. Do you understand that? You could go to jail." "Not if you help me," Rebecca pleaded, turning to our father. "Daddy, please. You can fix this. You always fix everything. But our father shook his head, tears in his eyes. Not this time, sweetheart. Some things can't be fixed. The next hour was a blur of tears, accusations, and finally, painful acceptance. My parents called their lawyer, who confirmed what they already knew. The evidence against Rebecca was overwhelming. The best they could hope for was a plea deal that might keep her out of prison. As the reality of her situation sank in, Rebecca's anger turned to despair. She curled up on the sofa, looking smaller and more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. "What's going to happen to me?" she asked quietly, looking at me for the first time without hostility. I took a deep breath. "That depends on you, Rebecca. If you cooperate, agree to pay back what you took, maybe we can work something out. But it has to start with honesty." She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." Looking at her then, I felt a mix of emotions I couldn't quite sort out. Anger at what she'd done, sadness for the relationship we might have had, relief that the truth was finally out. My parents were struggling too. Years of certainty about their daughters had been upended in a single afternoon. The perfect daughter had fallen, and the one they'd underestimated had turned out to be the family's salvation. "Madison," my father said, his voice rough with emotion, "the company, what happens now?" "The board wants me to take over as CEO," I said quietly. "If you okay with that?" He reached for my hand, squeezing it tightly. "More than okay. It's what should have happened years ago. I'm sorry we didn't see it sooner." My mother wiped her eyes, trying to compose herself. "Both of you," she said, looking between Rebecca and me, "we failed you. We pushed you too hard, compared you too much. Maybe if we'd done things differently." "Mom," I interrupted gently, "we all made our choices. What matters now is what we do going forward." Over the next few months, everything changed. Rebecca agreed to a plea deal that included restitution and community service. She moved out of her luxury apartment, sold her expensive cars, and started therapy to deal with her spending addiction. I took over as CEO of Palmer Industries, implementing new financial controls and transparency measures. The company didn't just survive the scandal, it thrived. Our employees, relieved to have stable leadership, worked harder than ever. My parents struggled to adjust to their new reality, but slowly, they began to heal. They stopped comparing us, stopped trying to mold us into their idea of perfect daughters. For the first time, they saw us as we really were, flawed, human, but capable of both great mistakes and great redemption. As for Rebecca and me, we're working on our relationship. It's not perfect, there's too much history, too many hurt feelings for that. But there's honesty now, and sometimes that's more valuable than perfection. Last week, I found a note on my desk at work. Rebecca's handwriting, still elegant despite everything that had changed. "I always thought I was competing with you, trying to win some impossible race. But you weren't my competition, you were the sister I should have been learning from all along. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to." I keep that note in my desk drawer now, a reminder that sometimes the biggest victories come not from winning, but from finding a way to move forward together. The company our parents built isn't just surviving, it's becoming something new, something stronger. And so are we. Standing in my office now, looking out over the city, I think about everything that's changed. The view is the same as it was that night Rebecca called to gloat about selling the company, but I'm not the same person who took that call. I'm stronger now, more confident in who I am and what I can achieve. And maybe that's the real lesson in all of this, that success isn't about being perfect or winning at all costs. It's about staying true to yourself, doing what's right even when it's hard, and being willing to help others find their way back when they lose their path. The company will always bear our family name, but now it stands for something more than just business success. It's a testament to resilience, to the power of truth, and to the possibility of redemption, even when it comes from the most unexpected places.